Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. My name's Bruce Reed, and I created 55 North about 6 or 7 years ago to undertake development of a project in northern Manitoba. I'm going to make two statements to you, and I know that they're going to sound extremely promotional coming out of the gate. I will then step up and show you why I'm going to make those statements. This company will either be bought out or it will be in production within the next 2 years. And I know that that's, some pretty hefty things to say about any mining project, given the time it takes to build mines and the time it takes to develop them, because as I say, I've been involved in a lot of that time-consuming effort of putting projects through their paces to get them to the point where they can be produced. FFF is an existing, it's funny enough, 25 years ago this would have been average grade, but in today's gold price, this is high grade. And I've drilled it, I think, 5 or 6 times in the last 10 years, and I've taken the project from about 25,000 ounces up to where it is today at 355,000 ounces, and it's got a grade of about 5.5 grams. And that's highly economic in today's gold price. The project just to the north of us is owned by Alamos, and I sold it to them in 2016. And the critical factor with Alamos is they announced 9 months ago that they are going into production on the project that I sold them, and they're going to be spending around $700 million US and building a 10,000 ton per day plant. That plant could handle our ore very easily. 10,000 tons wouldn't take much. So you also add in what's happened to the price of gold, and the economics of this thing have gone through the roof. So we're in a very unusual situation. We've got an existing asset right beside a brand new mill that could easily take this material. We've got a strong gold price. I don't think I need to go into that. In Canadian dollars, which is actually quite critical, it's $6,500 Canadian. And that is quite remarkable in what it does for our, if you want to say, our potential earnings, cash flow, and everything else. We have a market cap at $12 million. When I do a model on what this project would look like at 500 tons a day, the net present value is just shy of 700 million Canadian. And that's, quite something. Alamos announced they're going into production. It's a large bulk tonnage open pit project. And they'll be mining, as I say, at about 10,000 tons per day. Here's one of the big differences. Alamos's grade is 1.3 grams. My grade is 5.5. I have 4 times better grade than they do. So you can see they're going to want my material to add into theirs. It only makes sense. As an example of valuation, Rob McEwen, who's a well-known mining entrepreneur, purchased an asset, the Tartan Lake, which is about 200 kilometers south of where we are in Manitoba, and it doesn't have anything like my infrastructure. Like, there's no mill nearby. Actually, to tell you the truth, there was a nasty forest fire that went through there and burned absolutely every bit of infrastructure they had. But they've got slightly less gold than we have, about the same grade. But Rob paid $447 per ounce, and we currently trade at $55 per ounce.
35 today, I'm afraid.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to just say what was on the page. Yeah, it is. We are trading at $35 an ounce relative to the gold in the ground, and that, I think we can start looking at increasing it, and I'll talk about that. On this page, I've got plans to recommence drilling later this month. This was written in December. I drilled 7 holes in February. So that's our resource as it currently stands. The way it operates, I'm not allowed to add those two together, but I can tell you it comes up to about 355,000 ounces at about 5.5 grams. The deposit's open, down plunge and along strike. And our deposit is roughly about 20 kilometers south of where Alamos's mill is going to be built. Let me just jump right to the map. Lynn Lake is an old mining town. It was the site of Sherritt Gordon's nickel operations for about 45 years. While they were mining nickel, they started to explore along these major shear zones, and they didn't find any more nickel, but they did find a lot of gold. When I sort of put this package of properties together, there were like 7 packages that I assembled to create the whole thing, I think about 2007. Anyways, there were 29 gold showings. A number of them had resources. I drilled about 400 holes on this package between 2007 and 2015, and I sold all of this to Alamos right here. It had about 5 million ounces when I sold it in resource to Alamos. They've now increased this package to about 15 million ounces, of which about 5 is reserve and 10 is resource. They're talking about a 45-year life in the mine. Honestly, they're going to be mining in this area for about 100 years. That's how good the potential is in this area. I should point out there's a paved road that comes from Thompson up to Lynn Lake. That's the end of all the paved roads. We're about a 12-hour drive north of Winnipeg to Lynn Lake, but it does have a sort of all the various infrastructure you'd want. That's a 5,000-foot paved runway. In the town of Lynn Lake, you've got a high school, a hospital, and most importantly, you've got a really good hockey rink. So anyways, my deposit, which is down in here, it is connected. That's not paved, but that's a good road to there. There was a winter road here, and I've also extended it so you can get ATVs and snowmobiles and things like that up and down there. I would probably use a helicopter to move the drill rigs around, but other than that, it's relatively simple and easy, and as I said, the infrastructure is good. This is just a plan of our property, and everything's in good standing. In terms of everything's up to date and has been submitted with the Manitoba government. That's just another look at our resource, and like I say, you add those two together to come up with our total package right at the moment. I'm not going to get too deep into the geology of the deposit, other than to say this is what they call a lode gold style deposit. It's everything I studied in university. Classic style gold deposit that occurs in Quebec, Ontario, and Manitoba, and in other areas of the world. The gold areas in West Africa and northern South America, they all were part of the same gold event. And anyways, in terms of metallurgy, and they're all relatively straightforward. I did a small amount of metallurgy on our stuff, and it fits very easily into either a carbon and pulp or carbon and leach plant. And I believe Alamos is using a carbon and leach, and we get recoveries of over 95%. And I'm not going to get into too much more of it than that, other than to say there's probably been 300 lode gold mines operate in the Canadian Shield in the last 100 years. Here's a picture of a long section of the project. It hangs basically vertically in the ground. It's like a shower curtain hanging in the ground. It's about 5 to maybe 7 meters wide, but what you've got outlined here is about 1.2 kilometers. The zone is open down below here. Our best hole is actually down here. I've been drilling in February across here, and I've probably added, I think, 350 meters of strike extension with my drilling. I've got 4 of the 7 holes back. I haven't released them yet. I will tell you that 3 of the 4 hit really nicely. There was one that was sort of north of 15 meters wide with some very economic grades. So I'm very happy. I think that we will just continue to drill to the south and also pick up some of the stuff at depth. These are drilling results from 2021. To be fair, we didn't do much for about 4 years because of the state of the mining industry, but you can see there is some good stuff in here, some good gold grades. That was one of our best holes right there, obviously. 16 meters of 19 grams. It's pretty sweet stuff. This is just another long section through it to show a pile of the holes that we had on it. I have drilled to date 191 holes. Every single hole I drilled on this, it hit, which is quite remarkable in its own right. This deposit, when I first got it, was a little bit up in here, and I've drilled all of this down here over the last 10 years, and I've had a lot of success, and I think I'll continue to get a fair bit of success in expanding this deposit. Those are my historic best holes. Of course, I had to show those. And you can see there's some great grades in this thing. And the widths, maybe not so much, but you know, anything north of 2 meters is quite mineable in with today's equipment. So it's a great deposit. Alamos. I sold Alamos their Lynn Lake project, and they've drilled, I don't know, maybe 1,000 holes into it and vastly expanded. And they came up with a whole project design and announced that they're going into production. And it'll be, I think when they announced it, it was late 27. There was a big forest fire up there last summer, and the town had to be evacuated. The town itself didn't get burned down, but some of the areas around did. Anyways, they're going to operate 10,000 tons per day. This is where I'm going to point out that if they were to put 500 tons of that 10,000 tons with my material, because I've got better than 4 times their grade, it dramatically changes their economics. I can't put that into a PowerPoint, but I will tell you that their net present value goes up by, I don't know, 30-40%. I know their internal rate of return goes up by nearly 60%. So it's kind of a cool project. They currently have, you can see up here their package as it currently stands, and I'm going to introduce this whole thing to them, and I've got a couple of things that I'm doing to help Alamos come to the decision that they're going to have to take me out. I don't think they're going to want a junior partner, but if they did, I'm still more than prepared to put this mine into production and toll my material through their mill. It's about 20 kilometers north of us, and it would fit nicely. In fact, I switched positions with Wayne. He's now the president and CEO, and I'm chairman and executive chairman and director. I did that because Wayne has been doing most of the money raising for this company, although I still do a fair bit. I keep my hands on the geology part of it, but as I said, Wayne's been running around doing most of the money raising, and that's perfectly fine. CFO and Vance, we're all seasoned people within the industry. We've all been around 30 years plus. Some of my directors, I'm about to add 2 new directors at the annual meeting in, I think it's in June, late June. But Sandra is a First Nation lady who basically steers us with the First Nations, and I'll talk about the First Nations in a minute. And Herb is a gentleman who lives in Saskatchewan and is also intimately involved with a lot of the First Nations. He's the only white guy I know who can speak fluent Cree and Ojibwe. And that's very important when it comes to sort of doing negotiations with them. This is the kind of equipment we use to sort of trundle around through some of the wet areas up there. Our deposit where we're drilling is all high and dry though. This is the sort of the balance sheet stuff that you want. 33 million shares, but fully diluted 50 million shares. Cash is a little below 3 million right at the moment, but we have no debt. Let me talk a little bit about the First Nations because they're a critical aspect in this. I have signed all sorts of impact benefit agreements with them. We're an extremely good relationship with the First Nations. I talk to, a number of the elders probably once a week. To be fair, we're probably only discussing hockey, but we do converse and they do know who we are and what we do. I've done a lot of things for them. And I know Vance is called Santa Claus up there because he went up and delivered about 100 turkeys and hams and all the fixings for Christmas this past year. One of the things that I am going to do with the First Nations is sell them a 1% NSR. And that net smelter return would probably mean about $1.5 million per annum net to them. And that is quite critical because they don't have anything like that. It'll change their lives dramatically, but they only get it if I go into production. And it's kind of like between them and me, it's, help me, help you, help me. In Canada, the First Nations have the hammer. They can make pretty much any mining company you can talk about do what they need. They can't, completely shut them down, but they can put a lot of moral suasion on them to perform. And I know that they understand their role is to get us a deal with Alamos so that our project gets into production. And I did that purposely. And effectively, they'll pay us $1 million, but it'll come out of the first cash flow that comes from the NSR. And as I mentioned before, Alamos is going to want our material because we've got 5 times their grade. Also, Alamos has got a market cap of, I think, $23 or $4 billion today. We have a market cap of 12. So hopefully I'm a lot higher by the time they take us out. But honestly, it's less than a rounding error for them, but it makes their project look really good. So that's basically the story. And back to my first statement, I'm either going to be in production or I'm going to get bought out in the next 2 years. Thank you.